West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Well, the stock market closed at another record all-time high today, 4 years after Donald Trump said this in a presidential debate, a debate that he lost to Joe Biden.
If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Now, normally, we don't adjudicate predictions to be lies, but that prediction was so ridiculous on its face at that time that it really can be scored as a lie. Donald Trump knew he was lying when he made up that crazy statement, the stock market will crash. There will be lies. There will be lies in tomorrow night's vice presidential debate, and CBS News, the host of the debate, has decided to guarantee that those lies are delivered directly to you at home without any interference at all from CBS News. CBS News has ordered the moderators not to fact check anything J.D. Vance says. And you know that no fact checking rule, which comes from no journalistic principle whatsoever, was put in place by CBS News to please the Republican Party and the Republican campaign, because the Republican campaign lies every day nonstop. When one of the people on the Trump-Vance ticket is speaking, lies are always flowing, always. Even now when it comes to disaster relief, hurricane relief, which used to be a completely nonpartisan subject that no one ever lied about, Donald Trump even lies about that.
Go for it, Stephanie.
Donald Trump lied about the Republican governor of Georgia not being able to get help from President Biden after the hurricane passing through Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Virginia, and the Carolinas killed 132 people and spread severe property damage and flooding to 6 states.
We do need some help from the federal government. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. That governor needs to, he's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him. But they'll come through, I'm sure.
Now, usually, Donald Trump, when he's lying about the Republican governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, he is attacking Brian Kemp for not helping him overturn the presidential election in Georgia.
You know Hulk Hogan's place on the beach got hit pretty bad?
Yesterday, but
no, he hasn't.
In the shower. He hasn't?
Here's what Georgia's governor, Brian Kemp, said publicly to everyone, including Donald Trump's campaign staff. Everybody heard this before Donald Trump started lying about him today.
The president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. And he just said, hey, what do you need? And I told him, you know, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that.
And here's what President Biden had to say about Donald Trump lying about how helpful President Biden has been to the governors dealing with this crisis.
Mr. President and Governor Cooper, Donald Trump has accused both of you of ignoring the disaster.
He is lying. Let me get this straight. He's lying. And the governor told him he was lying. The governor told me he was lying. I've spoken to the governor, spending time with him, and he told me he's lying. I don't know why he does this. And the reason I get so angry about it, I don't care about what he says about me, but I care what he communicates to the people that are in need. He implies that we're not doing everything possible. We are. And you spoke to the governor, I assume you heard the Republican governor of Georgia talk about that he was on the phone with me more than once. So that's simply not true, and it's irresponsible.
President Biden explained to the people in the region that he would not visit the scene until later this week because he doesn't want resources diverted away from helping people in order to provide security for his visit.
Well, I'm going to North Carolina on Wednesday, as planned now. We're going to be landing in Raleigh for a briefing with the Emergency Operations Center, and I'll then do an aerial tour of Asheville. It's too much for me in terms of interrupting access to help there to land and to survey the damage other through the air. And then it's my plan to travel to Georgia and Florida as soon as possible after that.
Vice President Harris canceled her campaigning in Nevada to rush back to Washington, and she said this at FEMA's headquarters in Washington this afternoon.
Over the last couple of days, I have received regular briefings on the impact of Hurricane Helene, including from Administrator Criswell. And over the past 24 hours, I have spoken with Governor Kemp of Georgia, Governor Cooper of North Carolina, and many local officials. I have shared with them that we will do everything in our power to help communities respond and recover. And I've shared with them that I plan to be on the ground as soon as possible, but as soon as possible without disrupting any emergency response operations, because that must be the highest priority in the first order of business. So far, more than 3,300 federal personnel are on the ground to assist with recovery efforts. They are deploying food, water, and generators. And we continue to work with teams on the ground to restore water and power as quickly as possible. You all do that work around the clock as though these are your family members. I know how you work, and I know how hard you work. So I am here mostly to thank you all for all that you do. To all of those of you who are rightly feeling overwhelmed by the destruction and the loss, our nation is with you. And President Biden and I, and all of the folks behind me, are with you. We will continue to do everything we can to help you recover and to help you rebuild, no matter how long it takes.
Kamala Harris picked up some important endorsements for her candidacy from the New York Times and the New Yorker magazine, and another Republican endorsement, this time from former Arizona Republican Senator Jeff Flake.
I'm a conservative Republican who had the honor to serve my home state of Arizona in the United States House of Representatives and in the Senate for nearly 2 decades. I believe that America is a great country. I believe that our best days lie ahead. I want to support a candidate for president who believes the same. I believe that we don't have to agree on every issue or policy, but that we should use the political process created by our founders to debate and to persuade, not disparage or demonize. I want to support a candidate who understands that political opponents are our fellow citizens, the loyal opposition as our parties once knew each other, not the enemy. Having spent the past 3 years overseas as a United States ambassador, I've seen up close that we have very real enemies abroad. We also have vital and indispensable allies. I want to support a presidential candidate who understands and appreciates the difference. I believe in our constitutional system and in the rule of law, and I want to support a candidate who respects the will of the voters and and would never attempt to use the powers of the presidency to overturn an election after having been turned out by the voters. Finally, I want to support a presidential candidate who seeks to unite our country rather than one who divides us. One who represents the ideals of a new generation of leadership based not on grievances of the past, but hope for the future. For all of these reasons, I'll be supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president. I served with Kamala in the United States Senate. I've also served with Tim in the United States House of Representatives. I know them. I know firsthand of their fine character and their love of country. I would encourage all Republicans who feel this way to do the same. After all, in times like these, there is nothing more conservative than putting country over party.
This week's New Yorker presents Kamala Harris on the cover and delivers the magazine's endorsement of her candidacy by first making the negative case against Donald Trump. Quote, "The threat to the country's future, to its rule of law and its democratic institutions, its security and its character resides not in a foreign capital, but at a 20-acre Xanadu on the Florida coast. For 9 years, Donald Trump has represented an ongoing assault on the stability, the nerves, and the nature of the United States. His narcissism and casual cruelty, his contempt for the truth have contaminated public life." The New Yorker chronicled Trump's madness, from the criminal attempt to overthrow an election to the social media rant, "I hate Taylor Swift." And then the New Yorker says, quote, "Trump is a menacing presence in American life, and most of his former associates know it now. Of his 42 former cabinet secretaries, only half have endorsed him. More than 200 staffers for 4 previous Republican presidents and presidential candidates have endorsed the Democratic ticket." The New Yorker says the choice is stark. The United States simply cannot endure another 4 years of Donald Trump. He is an agent of chaos, an enemy of liberal democracy, and a threat to America's moral standing in the world. Kamala Harris, who has shown herself to be sensible, humane, and liberal-minded, is our choice for the presidency. The New York Times editorial endorsing Kamala Harris is titled, "The Only Patriotic Choice for President." The editorial begins, quote, "It is hard to imagine a candidate more unworthy to serve as president of the United States than Donald Trump. He has proved himself morally unfit for an office that asks its occupant to put the good of the nation above self-interest. He has proved himself temperamentally unfit for a role that requires the very qualities, wisdom, honesty, empathy, courage, restraint, humility, discipline, that he most lacks. Those disqualifying characteristics are compounded by everything else that limits his ability to fulfill the duties of the president. His many criminal charges, his advancing age, his fundamental lack of interest in policy, and his increasingly bizarre cast of associates. This unequivocal, dispiriting truth, Donald Trump is not fit to be president, should be enough for any voter who cares about the health of our country and the stability of our democracy to deny him re-election. For this reason, regardless of any political disagreements voters might have with her, Kamala Harris is the only patriotic choice for president. The Times editorial endorsing Kamala Harris says that the number of Republicans, including from Donald Trump's own presidential administration, who have turned against him is, quote, "a record of denunciation without precedent in the nation's long history." The Times editorial makes the positive case for the vice president, saying, "Ms. Harris is clearly the better choice. She has committed to using the power of her office to help Americans better afford the things they need, to make it easier to own a home, to support small businesses, and to help workers. Beyond the economy, Ms. Harris promises to continue working to expand access to health care and reduce its cost. She has a long record of fighting to protect women's health and reproductive freedom. Globally, Ms. Harris would work to maintain and strengthen the alliances with like-minded nations that have long advanced American interests abroad and maintained the nation's security." The Times editorial ends with this: "A second Trump term would be much more damaging and divisive than the first. Kamala Harris is the only choice.
It is Tuesday, the 1st of October of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash. A mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Now, only a small scant dash. A little goes a long way. Okay, little alert bells in the background. I apologize, but that's how it is in today's new connected world. Oh, wow. Let's see. Well, it is debate day. J.D. Vance and Tim Walz are going to be going at it, I guess. I hate the idea that the moderators at CBS apparently, from what I understand, even from Lawrence at the top there, intimated that they have been ordered from on high not to fact check during the debate, because last time the only fact checks were directed at Trump, and that was because every time he opened his mouth it was a goddamn lie, and they couldn't fact check every single one. And Trump is complaining, well, you never fact checked Kamala. Well, she didn't lie, did she? I don't know. It's like you got to have a participation trophy and everything, and they call us the entitled elite. My brain. Enough to make you, well, blow a gasket. So, I got to say, there's no way that anyone can convince me that J.D. Vance is a hillbilly. What a lying sack of shit. What is his name? At least I put my name out there. I don't ever change it. He's been a lot of different people. Yep. And I got to tell you, he never worked at McDonald's. He never worked at Hardee's. Chick-fil-A. Not in any of those. Nope. Grandma took care of him. And then next thing you know, I think something was going on between him and Peter Thiel and others, because there's a little bit of a little bit of a thing going on in that group, shall we say. Lots of baby oil. Couches, apparently. Oh, God. Anyway, this guy is like, I don't know, a houseboy for Peter Thiel and all the rest of those wacko, weirdo billionaires. Ew. Okay, well, everybody is entitled to their kink, but I got to tell you, when you start saying that women have to be baby factories and they got to stay at home so their husbands can beat the crap out of them for the kids. They have to stay at home for the kids. No, mom takes the kids and books it out of there because dad is beating the crap out of her, and no one should have to grow up with that. What is wrong with that guy? Well, hang around Peter Thiel. Either you come into that sort of relationship with these notions, or they're like put into your head by Peter Thiel. I kind of think that they kind of grow on each other. Kind of sick. Why would people want to vote for that? Well, I'll tell you why. Because there's a lot of sick people out there. In a bad way. Oftentimes we have to make excuses for people because, well, they're sick. Yeah, but when it's pathological and lives are in the balance, saying, well, they just had diminished capacity, so it makes it okay that they pushed the button and blew up everybody with a nuclear blast. Yeah, well, he was sick. No shit, Sherlock. Isn't it our duty to quarantine the mofo and make sure he doesn't spread that BS around? I mean, come on. There's a responsibility that we have. If they're so willing to make women community property, I love that guy, that judge. Too bad that case is going to get overturned by the Georgia Supreme Court. Back to 22 weeks, which I guess that's enough. I don't know. I think at 22 weeks, it's still not viable to be able to be cared for in a infant care home. I don't think so. Not yet. Anyway, women are not community property, to be dictated by the whims of some weirdo freak couch effers. Give me a break. Okay. I think really what it is that anything that makes people's lives easier is deemed bad by the Opus Dei crowd, the Federalist Society crowd, the Heritage Foundation crowd, the Petersons, the Kochs, etc., 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 because when people are comfortable, it's bad for them. They need discord. They need chaos. They need death. They cannot believe that the FBI would come out at this time to give the yearly results on crime and murder and violent crime from the past year, because they do it every time this year. But why now? And crime's way down once again. Because, people around here are convinced that at any moment we're going to be overrun by those people and they're going to kill us in our sleep. Jesus, how many times have we heard that before? And the thing is that they think they're saying it for the first time. It's so maddening because, I'll tell you why, they're sick. And I'm tired of making excuses for them and their diminished capacity. When people say, I'm voting for the felon, and then chuckle, while at the same time having a banner that says, we support the police. Well, what kind of police would support that? The LA County Sheriff is having a problem with gangs in the police department. Why is that? You got your white supremacist gangs, you got your Latin gangs, and they're cops. I just got to say, that doesn't seem like the rule of law to me. That does not seem endemic to the success of a representative democracy. It is a sickness and it needs to be quarantined so it doesn't spread any more than it already has. And I think that we're getting to the point where it's saturated. Oh yeah, thinking that's being rhetorical. It has been for a considerable time. But I guess it's metastasized. And now look where we are. I just, I'm being confident. I'm pretty sure that our side will prevail. And once again, when that happens, it's going to be a shitstorm around here. I have to decide whether I will engage with any of that BS. Anyway, how's your day? It's Vice President Debate Day, yeah. Well, also before that, I have a busy day. I've got to get to the bank and get stuff ready for the lawyer next week, and then get the car in later on this afternoon. And it better not impinge upon the debate. They better not delay it. I tried to take it in last week, and apparently they said their racks were unavailable. All of them just gave out. I guess. I don't know why that was. But I was there for almost 3 hours, and I don't know. I couldn't wait any longer. I had to go. I usually takes about an hour. So at an hour and a half, they came and said, well, our racks aren't working, but we're getting yours up now. And okay, great. So another hour and a half passed, said, well, we haven't gotten it up on the rack yet because that rack is having a problem too. Okay. It's the only time I've ever had an issue. I hope it's not an issue. You never know in a small town. Jeez. I hope not. Anyway, I got to take the car in for its regular service because that tells you now. You don't get an idiot light that comes on. Remember those? We called them idiot lights when there was like a little warning like engine check. Now I get a digital readout on the dashboard. That's nice. Okay, call your dealer. I will. You mean it doesn't do it for me? Come on, what kind of smart car is that? Okay, it's probably a way to do it. Who knows? So let us, bring ourselves back to the matter at hand. And what is the matter at hand? Well, we have a salon here, and sure, we can just gab, but we did curate a show for you because, well, that's what we do. And, at the top there, Lauren's breaking it down about all those endorsements with the caveat about how Trump just lies. What a lying sack of you-know-what. Yes. But, she's picking up some major endorsements, and I love hearing the denials around here. It's all part of a deep state conspiracy. No shit, Sherlock. Seems to me like America has always hated Nazi authoritarian bullshit. So, if you're going to be a Burgermeister, you might as well, turn the mirror on yourselves, alrighty? Alrighty. On the rest of the menu, hey, that Kentucky sheriff who murdered that state judge in cold blood has made the difficult decision to retire. Yeah, difficult decision in quotations. I don't want to hear about that. I already know, but we'll find out together. The CEO of Steward Healthcare filed a lawsuit against a U.S. Senate panel over a contempt resolution he got for ignoring a lawful subpoena. Now, that's a sickness that's been going around. Nip that in the bud, or is it too late? And a trial is underway today challenging new rules passed at the last minute by the MAGA Georgia State Election Board to withhold or delay certification of November's election results. It's kind of like working the refs. It's more than that. After the break, we move to the chef's table where conservative Albanian opposition lawmakers violently disrupted a parliament session to protest the imprisonment of a fellow conservative legislator. That seems like a little infection going around, too. And Taiwan shuts schools and offices ahead of a direct hit from powerful Typhoon Krathon. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. want to give a big shout out to Kelly, Ricky, and Tom for all the help and everything else that they do here at Netroots Radio. So, hey, big shout out. Thank you, guys. If you out there in radio listening land, go to our homepage at netrootsradio.com and scroll down to near the bottom. Off to the right there is the link to our Patreon page. And if you could become a recurring Patreon, that would really help. So please do, please. Also, if I would suggest following me on social media at Justice Putnam. And the reason I suggest that is because then you'll have quick access to the show notes and links diaries, in which you'll have quick access to the actual reportage by the actual reporters from which we glean such great inspiration here at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. So, yeah, follow me at Justice Putnam. Alrighty, speaking of which, in terms of the real reportage by the actual reporters, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, by the way, is by Eric De La Garza, working at Raw Story. A Kentucky sheriff accused, I always hate that, he's not only accused, he killed a judge in a shooting that rocked the Letcher County Courthouse on September 19th, made the, quote, difficult decision, end quote, to retire less than 24 hours before he makes his next court appearance, according to a letter from his attorney. And that is today, and he made that difficult decision yesterday. Sean Mikey Steins, age 43, was arrested and charged with first-degree murder in the death of Letcher County District Judge Kevin Mullins, because I guess Mikey didn't like it. And he killed the judge in his chambers at the county courthouse in Whitesburg, Kentucky. The move came after the general counsel for Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear threatened to remove Steins from office. If you do not tender your resignation, the governor will move forward with removal, according to the letter which gave the former sheriff a deadline of last Friday. The law office of Jeremy A. Bartley, no Esquire, the Steins attorney, said in a statement to news outlets that Steins has, quote, proudly served the people of Letcher County for over 22 years. Really? At only 43, and expresses his heartfelt appreciation and love for the support this community has given him and his family during his time of service. Really? The statement continues. Mr. Steins has made the difficult decision to effect his retirement as of September 30th, 2024. That was yesterday. This decision is made not as a result of any ultimatum or in any way as a concession to any allegations made by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Rather, Sheriff Steins has made this decision to allow for a successor to continue to protect his beloved constituents while he addresses the legal process ahead of him. Oh, that's a nice way of putting it. Steins, the letter said, also asked for your thoughts and prayers of support for him and his family. Shouldn't it be his family and he? Thoughts and prayers. Got to get that in. After all, it is Kentucky. The shooting remains under investigation. Yeah, I think there might have been maybe a little love interest or a property dispute. I'm thinking property dispute. But preliminary reports indicates Steins shot District Mullins, or the District Judge Mullins, multiple times following an argument inside the courthouse, according to Kentucky State Police. Steins, who has pleaded not guilty, could face the death penalty. And he's scheduled to appear in court today at 1 p.m., which would make it in a few hours, here local time. And that's for a preliminary hearing, according to news station WATE, Kentucky. Steve LeBlanc at the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Steward Healthcare CEO Ralph De La Torre filed a lawsuit yesterday, Monday, against a U.S. Senate committee that pursued contempt charges against him for failing to appear before the panel despite being issued a subpoena. The lawsuit, filed in federal court in Washington, named nearly all members of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, including Senator Bernie Sanders, who chairs the committee which has investigated Steward's bankruptcy. The lawsuit claims that the lawmakers are unlawfully violating De La Torre's constitutional rights. It alleges that members of the committee, by trying to compel De La Torre to answer questions about Steward's bankruptcy, are collectively undertaking a concerted effort to punish De La Torre for invoking his Fifth Amendment right not to be compelled to be a witness against himself. In other words, he's guilty as you know what. De La Torre is asking the court to declare that all actions related to enforcement of the subpoena are invalid and unconstitutional. Wow, talk about entitled elites. Including the vote of the committee on September 19th, approving the criminal contempt resolution and its decision to present the resolution to the full Senate for a vote. Welcome to America, pal. Well, the Senate approved the resolution last week. No one can be compelled to testify when they exercise this right under these circumstances, nor does the Constitution permit Congress to punish and intimidate him, shouldn't it be he, or any other American for exercising these rights. William Bill Burke, a lawyer for De La Torre, said in a statement. Isn't that Bill Burke? Anna Barr, communications director for Sanders, dismissed the lawsuit. Democrats and Republicans on the Health Committee came together and unanimously voted to hold De La Torre in contempt of Congress, as did the entire U.S. Senate, she said in a statement. The case has no merit. The lawsuit comes a day before De La Torre is set to step down as CEO of Steward. De La Torre has overseen Steward's network of some 30 hospitals around the country. The Texas-based company's troubled recent history has drawn scrutiny from elected officials in New England, where some of its hospitals are located. A spokesperson for De La Torre said on Saturday that he has amicably separated from Steward on mutually agreeable terms, a golden parachute to make him go away, and will continue to be a tireless advocate for the improvement of reimbursement rates for the underprivileged patient population. Yeah, he's going to go drink Mai Tais on a beach somewhere in the Caribbean after the hurricane season is over. Brumback at the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A trial is set to get underway today, actually has already started, on a lawsuit filed by Democrats challenging two new rules passed by the Georgia State Election Board that have to do with county certification of election results. I would have just simply said the MAGA Georgia State Election Board doesn't want to certify the election, and they're making it up as they go along at the last minute. Supporters of the rules say they are necessary to ensure the accuracy of the vote totals before county election officials sign off on them, but critics say they worry that supporters of Trump could use the rules to delay or deny certification if he loses the state to Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris, causing confusion and casting doubt on the results. Well, that's what he's been doing ever since he came down that gilded escalator. The lawsuit is to be decided in a bench trial, which means there's a judge but no jury, before Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney. One of the rules provides a definition of certification that includes requiring county officials to conduct a reasonable inquiry before certifying results, but it does not specify what that means. The other includes language allowing county election officials to, quote, examine all election-related documentation created during the conduct of elections, end quote. The lawsuit was filed by the state and national Democratic parties, as well as county election board members, Democratic voters, and 2 Democratic state lawmakers running for re-election. It asks the judge to confirm that election superintendents, which are multi-person election boards in most counties, have no discretion to withhold or delay certification. It also asks him to declare the 2 new rules invalid if he believes they allow such discretion. The lawsuit was filed against the state election board, which is dominated by 3 Republican Party partisans whom Trump praised by name at a recent rally in Atlanta. The state and national Republican parties have joined the lawsuit on the side of the election board. While the Democrats concede that the 2 certification rules may not be counter to Georgia law, they argue the rules were drafted on the assumption that certification by county officials is discretionary. They worry that some officials allied with Trump could use the new rules to try to refuse to certify the election results by the deadline set in law. The Republicans have a 3-2 majority on the state election board, have used their power to pass numerous election rules in the last moment, mostly over the objections of Democratic appointees to the board and the nonpartisan chair. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, an association of county election officials, and the state attorney general's office have all cautioned against adopting new rules so close to the general election, saying it could cause confusion and put unnecessary burden on election workers. Well, it's a feature, not a bug. And with that, we need to get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them? By their clothes, their age, the way they speak? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a single father of 2 who works 3
part-time jobs and still can't put enough food on the table?
Or maybe a mother who cleans offices at night,
hoping to find meeting leftovers to take home to her hungry family.
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet.
I I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. People you pass by every day but never knew were hungry. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Don't you wish your life came with a warning app?
Stop. That dog does not want to be petted.
A heads up before something bad happens.
You should not send that text.
Uh-oh. Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can reverse prediabetes and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by-in for the people. Early voting for the 2024 general election has begun in 6 states, either by mail or in person. Another 9 states begin next week. But beware, voter registration begins closing next week in 14 states. Voting early has its advantages. No lines, more time to make choices, fewer health concerns, and generally less hassle. And for mail-in or absentee voters, it allows time to cure your ballot if you make a mistake, if your state allows it. Depending on your state's rules, early voting can be by mail-in absentee or in-person absentee, universal mail-in ballot, or in person at a designated polling place. One or more of these options has already begun in Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Virginia, Vermont, and Illinois. The week of October 7th, early voting begins in California, Montana, Nebraska, Indiana, New Mexico, Ohio, Wyoming, and Arizona. But in order to vote early or on Election Day, you must be registered. In the next 10 days, voter registration closes in 14 states for mail, online, and in-person registration for the general election. This includes South Carolina, Alaska, Rhode Island, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, Mississippi, Ohio, Tennessee, Texas, and Missouri. In some states, online and mail registration deadlines may differ. Find your state deadlines at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1991. That was the day that the Pattern Makers League of North America merged with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. Have you ever heard of the Pattern Makers Union? The Pattern Makers can trace their history all the way back to 1877, where 13 men met in Philadelphia to form their union. Highly skilled craftsmen, the Pattern Makers created molds and models. These cast molds were an essential step in the industrial manufacturing process. The earliest cause of the pattern makers was the 9-hour workday. Over the years, the pattern makers fought for the health and safety of their workers in an ever-changing industry. Like many industrial workers, ebbs and flows in the economy hit their union hard. Their membership peaked during productive industrial times, including during World War II. The pattern makers issued a lively bi-monthly journal. The journal related the news of their union, but also reported on major legal decisions and events impacting the national labor movement. Also in the pages of the journal, the pattern makers related their efforts to support other workers in metal trades. By 1959, the pattern makers had more than 15,000 members. During the 1960 space race, it was the pattern makers who played an important role. Their molds and models were an essential step in building spacecraft and other aeronautical equipment. But in the 1970s, the pattern makers' numbers began to decline. Finally, they decided, as many unions have, to merge with another union. There are many untold stories of unions whose work kept the great machine of American industry running. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 42 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the upper 80s, low 90s, winds light and variable, sunny throughout the day, clear skies overnight with lows around 50, winds light and variable, and then sunny tomorrow with highs only around 80 degrees, winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Ragweed pollen is rated high here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is in the good range at 25 parts per million, and that daytime UV index, though it is in the moderate range, has ticked down one level to level 4. It is fall. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.13 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is drying out at 66%. We remain under an active red flag warning, meaning conditions are rife for wildfire. And get your go bag if you don't have one. Get it together now. Don't wait. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is literally the Weather Underground. Literally. Looks like the weather station not too far from city center in London is registering 55 degrees with rain. Oh, London. Paris is 65 and partly cloudy. Rome is 75 and fair. Kabul is 68 degrees and clear. Hong Kong is 66 and cloudy. Tokyo is 76 and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 58 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 68 degrees and sunny with a excessive heat warning. Yeah, they could get to about 80 degrees. People will just boil there at 80. Chicago, Illinois is 65 degrees, mostly cloudy with a small craft advisory. And New York, New York is 68 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Yosemite at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Albanian opposition lawmakers violently disrupted a parliament session yesterday, Monday, to protest the imprisonment of a fellow legislator for slander. The Conservative Democratic Party of Albania has long accused the ruling Socialist Party of usurping all the powers, including the judiciary, and staged violent protests against the government since 2013. Oh, staged. Democrats shoved microphones off tables, hurled objects at the seats of the parliament speaker and government ministers, and burned chairs, saying Ervin Saliani's prison sentence was politically motivated. Really? They have also called for protests they say will block the Capitol starting next week. The capital is Tirana, of course. In 2018, Saliani demanded the resignation of the Socialist Party's then governing Interior Minister, Fatmir Jafaj, after a video circulated where two men claimed his brother was involved in illegal activities. The files and recordings they offered turned out to be fabricated, and they have since fled the country. Fabricated by who? Vladimir? Saliani was accused of slander, and last week the appeals court confirmed his sentence of a year in prison. He has to petition the Supreme Court to appeal the verdict while in jail. Parliament Speaker Elisa Spirapalli of the left-wing ruling party said the burning of chairs was a sign of disrespect of the citizens, the law, and the institutions of the democratic state. Democrats leader Sali Berisha, who is under house arrest on corruption charges, said the protest was the start of the opposition's battle to reclaim power ahead of next year's parliamentary election. The opposition has been harshly divided after Berisha and his family members were barred from entering the United States in 2021 and the United Kingdom in 2022 because of involvement in corruption. The opposition lawmaker has denied the accusations repeatedly, saying Prime Minister Edi Rama was behind them, without providing evidence. The Socialists have 73 lawmakers in the 140-member chamber and easily pass almost all draft laws. Post-communist Albania has struggled to fight corruption, which has impeded the country's democratic, economic, and social development. Simona Mistranu, also at the World Desk of the Associated Press, brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Taiwan closed schools and offices and evacuated hundreds from vulnerable areas around the island today, ahead of a strong typhoon expected to hit its densely populated western coast after lashing northern Philippine islands. Dozens of flights were canceled and more than 500 people were moved from mountainous regions prone to landslides. Nearly 40,000 troops were mobilized to help with the rescue efforts, according to the Defense Ministry. Typhoon Krathon is expected, or is it Krathon? Is expected to hit the major port city of Kaohsiung in the island's southwest early tomorrow afternoon, Wednesday, then move across the center of Taiwan and northeast toward the East China Sea. It is expected to be felt in the capital, Taipei, on Wednesday and Thursday. The mayor of Kaohsiung, a city of 2.7 million people, asked residents to stay indoors unless necessary to avoid flood and landslide-prone areas near rivers, the sea, and the mountains. Up to 31 inches of rain was forecast in surrounding mountainous areas. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.